Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. The National Corn Growers Association on Friday praised an arbitration ruling under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, rejecting Mexico's efforts to restrict imports of biotech corn. The U.S. has won a trade dispute case under the USMCA against Mexico over the imports of biotech corn products. U.S. officials stated that the panel found Mexico's plan to restrict imports of U.S. corn does not follow science or international trade standards. The ruling will ideally avoid any further efforts by Mexico to restrict genetically modified corn. Mexico is the largest buyer of U.S. corn. Now, U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai announced that U.S. had prevailed in a case against Mexico over biotech corn exports. The USMCA dispute panel agreed with the U.S. on all 7 legal claims. The USTR stated, finding that Mexico's measures to restrict corn imports were not based on science and undermined the market access Mexico agreed to provide under the USMCA. The panel issued its final report on Friday. We look forward to continuing our collaboration with the Mexican government to ensure a level playing field and provide access to safe, affordable, and sustainable agricultural products on both sides of the border. The URTR's office noted that through October, the U.S. had exported $4.8 billion in corn to Mexico in 2024. This is an incredible development for the nation's corn growers and rural communities, said Illinois farmer and NCGA President Keith Hartman Jr. This outcome is a direct result of the advocacy efforts of our corn growers. Mexico has 45 days to comply with the panel's findings. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
We've got some moisture that's going to be bouncing around Ohio this week. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin with a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. Let's kind of dive in here to it a little bit here. For your Monday, not much happening. I think we see clouds slowly thickening through the day, and eventually as we approach sunset, those clouds will trigger a little bit of moisture coming out of Michigan, northern Indiana, right into the state here. Rain and wet snow can be seen overnight tonight through probably midday tomorrow before it finally ends. All in, all done, we're looking at anywhere from a few hundreds to probably half an inch of liquid equivalent. Whether or not it's wet snow just really depends on location. I think in northwest and north central parts of Ohio, where the bulk of this precipitation is coming through overnight when it's the coldest anyway, those are the places I think we can see some wet snowflakes. We'll just have to see how it all shakes out, but I think farther south, we're all rain at this point. Moving through the balance of a Christmas Eve, we turn out partly sunny, or at least try to see clouds break for sunshine before sunset. And then we've got another round of moisture that tries to lift into the state through Christmas Day. That one very minor, and pretty much all south of southern tier counties may see a few spits and sprinkles. We're dry for Thursday, dry for the start of Friday. Then we've got 2 waves of moisture that come through from late Friday afternoon, Friday evening, right on through Saturday and Sunday. Those will bring us some moisture, rain, anywhere from 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch combined coverage, 90% of the Buckeye State. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Joining me is Wendy Osborne, Director of Market Development for Ohio Corn and Wheat, and we're going to talk specifically ethanol, Wendy. Where's our next demand come from?
Domestic demand for corn ethanol has been relatively flat. We have the 10% mandate. We're working on getting utilization up to 15% for more, and promoting unleaded 88. The exports is the bright spot. We've worked collaboratively with the U.S. Grains Council that's been focused on ethanol exports worldwide. And that's a large task because you have to work with political people in those countries. You have to build the infrastructure. It does take some time to get those ethanol exports. But when we see that they find the benefits of ethanol, we've seen huge gains. And so this year we do expect to export over 1.8 billion gallons of ethanol, which would be a new record for the U.S. ethanol exports.
Wow, that's pretty darn good when we start talking about not only are we the largest consumer, but then have a record in exports. Any idea what is the potential? I mean, if we're only using a third of it, a half would be a tremendous step.
We have a lot of capacity still within our ethanol industry right now to continue to produce more. So we have a lot of capacity with the existing ethanol plants that we have to produce more ethanol. And so, again, we have 95% of the world's population lives outside the United States. We have huge areas of countries companies that can utilize corn ethanol. Again, corn ethanol is a renewable fuel. It helps lower greenhouse gas emissions. It's better for air quality. It's better for the environment. One of the biggest advantages most countries are finding is that it's less expensive than fossil fuels.
I've been visiting with Wendy Osborne, Director of Market Development for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Let's turn now to the cattle and calves on feed for the slaughter market in the United States report that came out on Friday. This is for feedlots with a capacity of 1,000 head or more. That number was 12 million head on December 1, 2024. The inventory was slightly below December 1 of a year ago. Now, placements into feedlots during November totaled 1.8 million head, 4% below 2023. Net placements were 1.74 million head. Marketings of fed cattle during November totaled 1.73 million head, 1% below that of a year ago. DTN's analysis of the report showed a neutral to somewhat bullish number as actual USDA data came in almost identical to what pre-report estimates were providing. Now, I understand that both the on-feed and placement data came in at 0.1% higher than originally forecast, but thinking that this sliver of a difference should mean that the report should be viewed as neutral or somewhat bearish is splitting hairs. Comments from DTN livestock analyst Shaylee Stewart. What I was especially interested to see in this report was the placement data. As on November 25th, all cattle imports from Mexico into the United States were halted when a cow tested positive for New World screwworm in southern Mexico. And while all the weight divisions in calves, feeders weighing under 600 to 900 pounds were lighter than a year ago, there wasn't a drastic, notable change in the quantities placed. I suspect that we won't see a notable difference in the placements data until next month as imports from Mexico remain restricted. Once again, Friday's cattle and feed report will likely be something that traders will glance quickly at on today's trade, but then have little effect on the market given this week of holiday with Christmas and that the report didn't unveil anything alarming. Back with more after this.
Since 1926, Nationwide has been rooted in agriculture. Founded as the Farm Bureau Mutual Automobile Insurance Company with a mission to protect farmers and their communities, we honor our legacy by offering solutions that evolve with the complex needs of today's farms. As the leading insurer of America's farms and trusted by 8 farm bureaus for 100 years and counting, Nationwide is on your side. Number 1 insurer based on 2023 direct written premium per AM Best. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Hi everyone, this is Dale Minio from the Ohio AgNet. For a quarter of a century, I powered my truck with biodiesel, traveling the state promoting agriculture. Biodiesel is a reliable, high-performance fuel that works in any diesel engine without modification. The best part is that with every mile driven, I'm fueling the economy, doing good for the environment, and supporting soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org. After a week of drama surrounding the details, the Senate voted 85-11 early Saturday morning to pass a spending bill to avoid federal government shutdown. The bill now goes to the President, Joe Biden, to sign into law. According to Associated Press, the White House at midnight stated it had ceased shutdown preparations. With a shutdown avoided, USDA staff instead will be busy in the coming months developing a program to provide one-time checks to commodity producers from $10 billion in financial aid included in the year-end funding bill. USDA will also have to come up with a new program to pay for natural disaster losses for 2023 and 24. A few hours earlier, the House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly to approve a short-term funding bill for the government that includes close to $31 billion in aid for farmers to deal with natural disasters and economic challenges. The bill would fund the federal government to operate through mid-March. The legislation also includes more than $100 billion in disaster aid and $10 billion in economic aid to farmers, as well as extension of the Farm Bill through September 30th, 2025. Overall, farmers have nearly $31 billion in aid spelled out in the package. Now, the bill still needed the vote of approval by the Senate and Biden's signature. Late in the evening, AP reported that Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced that senators had reached agreement that would skip past procedural hurdles and allow them to pass the funding bill before the midnight deadline. What got dropped out of the bill from what we'd previously seen? They dropped the portion of the bill that would have allowed year-round sales of E15. Disaster aid details includes the bill provides $20.78 billion to help producers with disaster losses during the past 2 years. The disaster funds would cover losses from an array of natural disasters in 23 and 24, including droughts, wildfire, hurricanes, floods, derechos, excessive heat, tornadoes, winter storms, freeze events, and excessive moisture. Among those funds, $2 billion is set aside for livestock producers impacted by losses in the 23-24 due to drought, wildfires, and floods. The bill also increases payments and losses covered under the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, or NAP. The bill provides $10 billion in economic assistance through a formula laid out in the bill. The legislation creates one-time payments to producers based on 100% of planted acres, 50% of prevented planting acres for the 24 crop year. The bill requires USDA to issue those checks within 90 days after the bill becomes law. The payment rates are not final and are subject to USDA's discretion. Payments would be subjected to a $125,000 payment limit that could increase to $250,000 for producers who receive 75% or more of their gross income from farming. On one other note, the bill provides an extension of the current farm bill through September 30th of 25. The House and Senate Ag Committees will again be on the clock to try to pass a new farm bill 2 years behind schedule. The extension provides permanent law from going into effect on January 1 of 25. The dairy cliff is often mentioned as the biggest issue with permanent law. Under the law, USDA would be required to buy dairy products to help boost prices to the mandated level of 117% higher than the current all milk price. If you get done with all the math, that would be about $44.22 per hundredweight. Current milk price is $20.38. So lots of things to still be worked out, but progress is moving forward. Time now for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished mixed to mostly higher on Friday. Taking a look back, we saw soybeans as a leader, double-digit gains on some decent or interesting news. Also, I think some bottom picking going on in the soy complex for Thursday and Friday of last week. Corn had a nice finish to the week as well, finishing above 450 futures on the May. And we also saw new crop get doggone close to 440. Moving into the wheat, we were lower in Chicago, a penny or two higher in KC. The best wheat was spring wheat, up 2 to 4 cents overall. What was the marketplace talking about, humming about last Friday? The overall rally in soybeans and soy meal appeared to be related to pre-holiday short covering because the forecast in Argentina started to go a little bit drier. There was also some talk late last week that China may face anti-dumping duties for just over 800,000 metric tons of synthetic lysine into the EU. Now, one would expect that China will either cut the price on its lysine price or push the product into another world protein market. This has been the pattern of China in the EU, which has brought anti-dumping duties before on various products. We are told that the EU has not yet decided on duties that range from 54 to 85%, and it's still reviewing the case against China. So that was one of the bigger stories last week. Also, other rumors on Friday centered around China securing U.S. soybeans in that March to April timeframe and backloading them more in April than anything else. We're hearing that this is to restock their reserve, potentially 500,000 to 1.2 million metric tons, but we're not getting anybody to confirm that. We had a flash reported sale, Colombia, 150,000 tons of corn last Friday. No soybean sales were announced, contrary to the large China rumors. And we're also looking at funds buying back about 5,400 contracts of corn and 6,700 contracts of beans last Friday. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. At the overnight open, March corn up 1 1/4, 447.5. December new crop up 3/4 at 438.5. January beans up 1 3/4, trading 976 1/4. November new crop 990 3/4, up 3.5. July new crop wheat up 3 1/4 at 553.5. December cattle 191.32, up 97. February lean hogs 85.92, up $2.30. This is the Ohio AgNet.